The wind chimes tinkled a mournful song, their sound swallowed by the overgrown garden. Dust motes danced in the weak afternoon light that streamed through the grimy windows of the old Victorian house. Inside, Elias sat hunched in his armchair, a faded afghan draped over his knees. His gaze, clouded with age and sorrow, was fixed on the empty swing set in the backyard. It was a swing set he'd built with his own 2 hands, back when Sarah was a little girl. He could still picture her, her bright pigtails bouncing as she shrieked with laughter, soaring towards the sky. Now, the swings hung motionless, the wooden seats weathered and cracked, silent witnesses to the slow decay of everything he held dear. Elias was 82. His bones ached with every movement, his eyesight was failing, and his memory flickered like a dying candle. He needed help, but he was alone. Sarah, his only child, had promised she would always be there for him. "Don't worry, Dad," she'd said, her voice warm and reassuring. "I'll make sure you're taken care of." Those words echoed in his mind, taunting him with their emptiness. It had been 5 years since Sarah last visited. 5 years since she'd hugged him, kissed his cheek, and promised to call soon. The calls dwindled, then stopped altogether. His letters went unanswered. He'd tried calling her number, but it was always the same, a polite recording informing him that the number was no longer in service. He didn't know what had happened. Had she moved? Was she sick? Had she simply forgotten him? The possibilities swirled in his mind, each one more agonizing than the last. He tried to be understanding. Sarah had her own life, her own family. She had a career, a husband, 2 children. He didn't want to be a burden. But sometimes, in the lonely hours of the night, when the silence of the house pressed down on him like a shroud, he couldn't help but feel abandoned. He remembered the day Sarah left for college. He'd stood on the porch, waving until her car disappeared down the long driveway. He'd felt a pang of sadness, but also a swell of pride. He knew she was destined for great things. He never imagined that those great things would take her so far away from him. Elias had always been a simple man. He'd worked hard his entire life, first on his father's farm, then as a carpenter. He wasn't educated, he wasn't wealthy, but he'd always tried to provide for his family. He'd taught Sarah how to ride a bike, how to bake cookies, how to be kind. He'd read her bedtime stories, helped her with her homework, and cheered her on at every school play. He believed he'd been a good father. He'd made mistakes, of course, but he'd always tried his best. He couldn't understand why Sarah had turned her back on him. What had he done to deserve this? His neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, was the only person who checked on him regularly. She brought him groceries, helped him with his medications, and listened patiently to his story. She was a kind woman, but she had her own family and her own life. He didn't want to impose. "You should hire a home health aide, Elias," she'd said. "You can't keep living like this." He knew she was right. He couldn't manage on his own much longer. But he couldn't afford it. He'd spent most of his savings on Sarah's education. He didn't regret it, but it left him vulnerable. One day, while sorting through a box of old photographs, he found a picture of Sarah. She was about 10 years old, her face beaming, her arms wrapped around him. He remembered that day. They'd gone to the beach, built sandcastles, and eaten ice cream. It was one of the happiest days of his life. He clutched the photograph to his chest, tears streaming down his face. He missed her so much it felt like a physical pain. He longed to hear her voice, to see her smile, to feel her embrace. He decided to write her one last letter. He poured his heart out onto the page, telling her how much he loved her, how much he missed her, how much he needed her. He didn't blame her, he didn't accuse her, he simply pleaded with her to come home. He mailed the letter, then waited. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Still, no word from Sarah. Elias's health continued to decline. He grew weaker, more confused, more isolated. He spent most of his days sitting in his armchair, staring at the empty swing set, lost in his memories. One cold, rainy afternoon, Mrs. Henderson found him unresponsive in his chair. She called an ambulance, but it was too late. Elias was gone. The news of his death reached Sarah through a distant relative. She felt a pang of guilt, a wave of regret. She hadn't seen her father in years, she hadn't spoken to him in months, but she'd always assumed there would be time. Time to visit, time to apologize, time to make amends. Now, it was too late. She flew back to her hometown for the funeral. It was a small, somber affair. Only a handful of people attended, Mrs. Henderson, a few distant relatives, and a couple of old friends. Sarah felt like an intruder, a stranger in her own father's life. As she stood by his graveside, listening to the mournful words of the pastor, she couldn't help but wonder what he would have thought of her. Would he have forgiven her? Would he have understood? After the funeral, she went back to the old Victorian house. It was just as she remembered it, dusty, cluttered, and filled with the ghosts of the past. She walked through the rooms, touching the familiar objects, trying to conjure up memories of her childhood. In the living room, she found a stack of unopened letters. They were all addressed to her, in her father's shaky handwriting. She picked one up and opened it. "My dearest Sarah," it began. "I hope this letter finds you well. I know I haven't been the best at keeping in touch, but I want you to know that I think of you every day. I'm so proud of you, of everything you've accomplished. I know you're busy, but I would love to see you again. Just a visit, a phone call, anything to let me know you're okay. I love you more than words can say. Love, Dad." Sarah sank to the floor, sobbing. She read through all the letters, each one a testament to her father's unwavering love. She realized how much she'd missed, how much she'd taken for granted. She went outside and sat on the swing set. The wooden seats creaked beneath her weight. She closed her eyes and imagined her father standing beside her, pushing her gently, his face filled with love. It was too late to apologize, too late to make amends. All she could do was sit there, in the empty swing set, and mourn the loss of her father, and the loss of everything she'd once been. The wind chimes tinkled in the breeze, their sound a mournful reminder of the love she'd abandoned, and the life she'd left behind. The swing set remained empty, a silent testament to the broken bonds of family, and the enduring pain of regret. And she knew that the mournful song of the wind chimes would follow her forever. The guilt would become a companion, a constant reminder of the love she neglected, the father she failed.